Hi guys, my name is Kjetil Madsen if you're new to this channel. Finally, here's my long-term review of the ZHIYUN WEEBILL LAB. Man, this review has taken me months to complete as I constantly was testing and trying out new things. My journey with this gimbal has not been frustration-free, as we'll speak about later, but this gimbal has a lot going on for it, so we'll see how it all sums up in the end. In this review, we are going to look at the design, functionality, the different modes, gimbal stability, including a lot of image examples, and differences using stabilized and non-stabilized lenses, the app, the positives and the negatives, and some tips and tricks I think not mentioned in a lot of other reviews. I must also throw in that I'm in no way sponsored or paid, as I bought this gimbal for my own hard-earned money. As always, I'll give you my honest opinion on things I review. But first, let's kick things off by seeing what kind of footage you can expect when I put my normal style and post-production on it. Some are slow motion, some are natural speeds, some also have in-post stabilizing. We're going to look at some raw video clips later on. Enjoy! Let's start out with an overview of the gimbal itself. The shape of this thing made me, and probably a lot of people, smile at first glance. It has an unusual shape, but after some time it really makes sense. The extra handle in the back is both great for going low to the ground and also when in upright position. The footprint of the gimbal is really small. And there's also locks in all three axes, making it great for carrying and storing. And the locks makes balancing one on one axis a breeze. The gimbal weighs in at 970 grams plus batteries, that's about 2.1 pounds, and the retail price as this video is going live is $599 US. The gimbal is rated at maximum 3 kilos payload, that's roughly 6.6 pounds. The minimum weight is 300 grams, so connecting only your phone or similar is not going to work unless you weigh it down with something. But this gimbal is designed for smaller mirrorless cameras like Sony A7 III or GH5 or Fujifilm X-T3 as I'm using. So, what's in the box? Or what's in the styrofoam box, to be more precise? This gimbal doesn't come with a hard case, but in a styrofoam case. Along with the actual WEEBILL LAB, you also get two 18650 batteries and a dual charger, a camera plate to raise the camera if your lens has a wide diameter, an assortment of camera control cables, and a tripod. There's also a lot of other accessories available to the WEEBILL, like focus motors for manual focus control, quick releases for the tripod, a short monopod, and a dedicated backpack, amongst other things. So, what's the main purpose of a gimbal? Yes, to get stable, smooth shots. Let's see how the gimbal performs. I must admit, I have been working for a great deal of time trying to understand how to get the most stable shot from this gimbal. The form factor of the gimbal is great, but being small and light has some downsides. The motors are quite small, so any bumps when walking or moving really shows up, making the stabilizer too wobbly sideways in my finding. Normally you get jitters from gimbals when the motors are stressed out, but this behaves differently than my previous experiences. Let's look at some examples. The gimbal is perfectly balanced in this case, and the motor force, or motor torque adjustment if you will, is set to low. The camera is a Fujifilm X-T3 with a small lightweight lens. There's quite a lot of wobbling if you look at the upper corners. I walk the ninja walk as good as I can. Then again, with motor force set to medium, somewhat better. Then again with motor force at high, then it's usable but not perfect. Here again at high and post stabilize in Final Cut Pro. Then it's fully acceptable. But not all shots are possible to post stabilize as easy as this one. Here is one more example at high motor force, underslung mode, walking as smooth as I can. Then again with post stabilizing. Here is one more example at high. And here with stabilizing in post. I must say I got much more stable results with my old ZHIYUN crane. Here is one example with the ZHIYUN that has in-body stabilizing, but I tested it to be equally smooth without stabilizing using the original ZHIYUN crane. I have one event I shot at a drag race with a Weebill where I went with a Fujifilm 18-55, which is optically stabilized, and the results are better, but still not perfect. Here it's after some in-post stabilizing. Here again, without post-stabilizing. Sometimes, when the gimbal was hit by the pressure these drags output, my gimbal sometimes went crazy, just starting to fluctuate sideways. But this is an extreme situation, so these extreme results you are most likely not going to experience. Many of the other Weebill reviews out there are with Sony's, Panasonic's or similar cameras that have good in-body image stabilizing. This really smooths out the imperfections of the Weebill. For instance, have a look at Brandon Lee's Weebill review and you will see the same symptoms when it runs without stabilizing on. So, my advice is to use this gimbal with stabilized cameras or at least a stabilized lens. For the form factor, it's still a good gimbal, but not perfect on a camera like the X-T3 with non-stabilized lenses. Here you see a running test with a non-stabilized lens. The Weebill has easy selectable modes, clearly displayed on the LCD. There are dedicated buttons for most modes. We have the pan follow mode, where the tilt and roll are locked. You can use the joystick for the tilt axis. You have the lock mode, where the camera points at the same direction, no matter how you turn or tilt the gimbal. The follow mode is engaged if you hold the front button. You have the point of view mode, where the camera follows your pan, tilt and roll. You can get some cool perspectives with this mode. We also have the vortex mode coming in more and more gimbals these days, where you get constant roll and speed can be adjusted with a joystick. It can be cool, but don't overdo it, as it can be too much in some cases. You can double tap the front button anytime to center the gimbal. You can triple tap for selfie mode. Triple tap again to turn back to centered forwards. One great thing that I use all the time is that you can manually adjust the camera angle and it stays in the position. This makes your shooting a lot quicker when you have to quickly adjust your composition. The underslung mode is stress-free compared to a regular gimbal type. No need to turn your camera around and the weight distribution feels just great. This is the best way to carry a gimbal also, leading to a great travel gimbal, as you can carry this around for hours without feeling fatigued. The Go mode simply speeds up your camera movements if you need to follow some fast-paced action. The tripod can easily be changed from the bottom to the top as a handle for better stability, or when in underslung mode. Also consider getting the ZHIYUN quick release accessories to change even faster. Remember to use the lock pins when the handle is in the upper position, preventing it to get loose. There is a camera control connection and a focus control connection if you have a compatible camera or use the follow focus motor. I've used the Tilta Nucleus Nano on the Weebill, and the focus control connections can be used to power other accessories than the original follow focus motor. One great feature is the two-piece base, meaning that you can disconnect the top plate to take off the camera to change batteries or swap memory cards without needing to rebalance the camera. This can be a pain on some gimbals, but works great and is easy on the Weebill. The Weebill uses two 18650 batteries that are rated to 10 hours of use. This of course depends on how you use the gimbal and how well it's balanced. I've used it for 5 hours straight and had plenty of power left, so I don't think the rated time specified is off by much. The battery charging time is 2.5 hours. The short bottom handle of the Weebill makes the placement of the buttons placed where the hand needs to if the bottom tripod is detached or in the upper mount. You might accidentally push the buttons or joystick. That's why they added in a firmware update the possibility to lock the buttons. Push 3 times the LB button up and the buttons are locked. Push 3 times again to unlock. One trick is if you need to stay in the follow mode. For instance, if you use a monopod to get high up and aren't able to press and hold the front button, the trick is to hold the front button and triple click the LV button. Then you stay in the follow mode until you triple click again. Updating your Weebill is easy through the ZHIYUN Play app. Just open the app and select your gimbal type, the Weebill in this case. If there is a new software available, you'll be notified. Start the download. Press OK. Go to your phone settings and select the Weebill Wi-Fi. Open the Play app. Press Upload Firmware. Your Weebill will turn off automatically when the upgrade is finished. The app has different uses depending if your camera is supported or not. Here's a list of cameras supported for image transfer and camera control from the gimbal or app. Only Sony, Panasonic and Nikon cameras are supported. I now use a Fujifilm X-T3 that does not have support for image transfer or camera controls. But let's open the app and see what it's useful for in a case like this. We can select the different gimbal modes: pan follow, lock, follow, point of view, phone go or vortex mode. We can use the joystick to control the gimbal remotely. In the settings tab you can adjust the motor strength and the sensitivity of the zoom or focus. The latter two obviously doesn't do anything for my camera. We have some overlays, useful if you have image transfer. In the scene mode you can customize the gimbal sensitivity. I highly recommend adjusting them as it's too responsive with a jerky response in the default settings. Play around to find what suits your style and need. You also might need different smoothness and speeds depending on what you shoot. You can calibrate the motors or perform a 6-side calibration. You can see your phone and gimbal battery level. I must admit, I haven't used the app much other than adjusting the gimbal sensitivity and updating the firmware. The use of the app could be useful though if you have a compatible camera, but be aware that the image lag is reported to be slow, and I rely on an external monitor. In my case, the Atomos Ninja V on top of a small rig custom rear handle. The form factor of this gimbal first struck me as kind of odd and awkward, as probably for many others, but the more I looked at it, the more sense it makes. A normal gimbal is just a stick with a heavy camera on top, making it wiggly and top heavy. On my previous ZHIYUN crane, I often used the side handle to get more stable shots. With the rear handle, you get really great control both when in normal upright position and when in underslung mode. Yes, this gimbal is great for getting those low shots. Turning a normal design gimbal in underslung mode can differ from model to model, but it's normally a pain, and you get no good stress-free grip as with the WEEBILL LAB. The form factor is really small, and when taking off the tripod, it fits in most backpacks. If you take off the camera, the gimbal fits also in a smaller shoulder bag. Here it's shown with a small backpack, the Lowepro ProTactic 350 All-Weather 2. The modes are easily accessible. Only downside is the follow modus that needs the front button to be pressed or locking the button as mentioned earlier. Battery life is good compared to the size. Stabilizing is mediocre. Portability is great. Weight is great. Many options on this gimbal is okay, but not as feature-packed as for instance the Mozo Air 2. You need to open the app to change the smoothness settings. Only the motor strings are available on the gimbal itself. Price is high compared to other high-capacity gimbals, but there are, as we speak, no other gimbals of this size and form factor available, so I think they priced thereafter. Build is from plastic, so it's not as rugged as many other gimbals. But you have to give in on something to keep the weight down. The arms are from metal though, and the plastic feels high quality. Features are good, and I definitely love the axis locks and the detachable camera plate, making it possible to take the camera off and on without recalibrating. The app I can't comment on fully, as I have no compatible camera to test all the features with, so I'm going to leave it blank. Rated weight capacity is good for the size at 3 kilos, but be aware that front-heavy cameras or lenses can be problematic to balance, as there is just so much place to move the camera without hitting the arms. So, my take on the ZHIYUN WEEBILL LAB. To sum up the positives and negatives, it's a great form factor, easily to pack for travel, and probably a gimbal you bring with you more often than a bigger gimbal. The stabilizing on the other hand is mediocre, and you will need to rely on really smooth gimbal handling and post-processing in some instances if you want it really smooth. Will I be keeping my Weebill? It's still under consideration if I'll keep it as a light travel gimbal in addition to my Ronin S. Thanks for stopping by guys, and subscribe if you like stuff like this. And lastly, did you know the name Weebill is to indicate that this is a small gimbal, as a Weebill actually is Australia's smallest bird. Cheers from Norway guys, and see you soon.